Today, my guest on the Delay the Decay podcast is Dayton Moore. Dayton is one of the most respected leaders in Major League Baseball. He's best known for helping build the Kansas City Royals into World Series champions in 2015. Dayton has spent decades leading with conviction, character, and long-term vision. Today, he serves in the front office of the Texas Rangers while continuing to invest deeply in people and community through initiatives like Unite KC and the foundation that he and his wife Marianne founded together. He's been married to Marianne for 34 years, and he has 3 adult children. Our conversation today is about leadership, faith, legacy, and what it really means to finish well. Dayton, welcome to the Delay the Decay podcast, my friend.
Thank you, Dan. Great to be with you. I appreciate what you're doing, and this is a great platform, and I'm grateful to be on it.
Thank you. In your busy life, what's one discipline or habit that you're trying to incorporate into your week to keep you moving upwards and to the right?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me at this stage of where I am and what I've realized from working with 16 to 25-year-olds pretty much my entire professional life, and I've really come to appreciate and understand the importance of the strength of the family. And it's the strength of our schools, the strength of our churches, our businesses, all of our institutions, and certainly our city, our state, and our country is traced right back to the strength of the family. And so a lot of things that I'm involved in on a daily basis is just how can we be salt and light to encourage young fathers, young families, young baseball players that never let or are convicted in not letting the game turn them into something they don't want to be. I'm challenging myself to learn more about the marriage relationship. As you mentioned, Marianne and I have been married for 34 years, but one of my dreams is for her and I to be able to come together and have small group studies with young couples in our home, and primarily because Marianne has been such an unbelievable encourager to me throughout my life and my time in professional baseball. And as I reflect back, any measure of success that I've had really is traced back to her and her emotional stability. And I've found that even looking deeper that, some of our most impactful employees had one thing in common. They had a wife at home that was a great encourager and very supportive, and was really a great partner. And so part of my vision in coming alongside of young married couples really is just to kind of highlight Marianne and what she did for our family. And she's natural at hospitality and caring for people, and I've never heard her say a negative word about anybody, and that's been a great inspiration to me. And so just trying to unpack and reflect deeply on our marriage journey, and understanding that I've got to fight every single day for the love and the respect and the admiration for her. I got to compete for it, and if I don't, somebody else will. That's what's challenged me as much as anything. I want to really finish strong, in our marriage, and so that's one of the things that I'm committed to as much as anything right now. And one thing I'll say, and we'll move on to the next question, but I realized that there was many a time that I treated Marianne, took her for granted. I really did. I wasn't realizing, I wasn't trying to, but she never made me feel like I treated her or took her for granted. And again, I think that speaks to her her nature, and she's a praying woman, and I know how much she prayed for me, and and continues to pray for me.
Wow, what a way to publicly honor your wife. Thanks for starting off that way. You know, we chatted just a bit before we went live here, and I asked you how long you've been married. You said 34 years, and you asked me, and I said 46 years. And I've been processing, even after 46 years, some of the same things lately that I so easily take my wife for granted. And I'm really, there's so much good about her, and I'm trying to I'm asking the Lord to help me walk in the Spirit in the way that I treat her, to treat her in the way that He sees her and the way that He would treat her, and it shouldn't be that hard. It should be more natural, because sounds like your wife is a lot like my wife, that she's just always stood by my side. Has been an encourager and a prayer, and what do they say, Dayton? Behind every great man is a better woman, and
That's right.
There's a lot of truth in that, for sure.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I'm going to start this a little bit backwards, but you stepped away from the Kansas City Royals in what year? 20.
Well, actually, my time was coming to an end there. I got fired in September of 22.
Okay.
You know, I never thought that would occur, because we had several opportunities to leave, you know, the Royals, especially after we won. You know, when you win in a small market, the professional model is to move on, and you go to a bigger market. And of course, you know, those opportunities presented itself to us. And but Mr. Glass, who was the owner at the time, was so loyal to us and so supportive, and he asked us to stay multiple times, and we did. And then he got sick, and had to sell the team. A new ownership came in, and great ownership, and John Sherman, and who's the current owner of the Royals. But you know, he felt that you know, that some change was required, and you know, I wanted to, you know, transition and stay at a different role, but you know, he felt differently, and so we moved on, and I'm fortunate to be, you know, with the Texas Rangers right now as a senior advisor. So
Yeah, and won another World Series. That's pretty exciting. Yeah. When you were fired in 2022? Let's talk about that for a minute. My guess is that you were running pretty hard. At the level of leadership that you had in the Kansas City Royals, you were running hard, probably 7 days a week, many hours each day. Is that correct?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that was part of the, and that was, again, that was part of the, you know, it was time for a change. But just like my son proposed the question to me, he said, "Dad, would you have ever quit?" And I said, "No, they'd have to kill me before I quit." And he said, "Well, you know, God's hand was in this transition." And looking back on it, there's no doubt it was. Although it was painful. It was painful to, you know, the Royals were my boyhood team, and we had a very simple motto with the Royals. I love baseball. I love the Royals. We're going to share that love with everybody that we encounter. Every time that I thought of the Kansas City Royals and think about the Kansas City Royals today, I think about family. I think about my grandmother. I think about my mother. I think about how important, you know, this team is and was a part of my childhood. You know, George Brett was my favorite player. The Royals were the model organization in baseball in the 80s, and you know, and it was a proud moment when we had an opportunity to come to Kansas City and lead as the general manager, and then to be able to do something special, you know, for the community, and ultimately win a World Series because of the great efforts of so many people and an unbelievable supportive fan base was very rewarding. And you know, I'm thankful to have been a part of that.
Well, I certainly want to hear more about that. I want to know how you became a Kansas City Royals fan and how you did in Kansas City. But I want to camp on 2022 just for a little bit longer, because we all have disappointments in our career, disappointments in our life, trials that we would never choose, but that when in hindsight they turn out to be one of the biggest blessings in our life. Talk a little bit about that, Dayton, on on how did that impact you as a man, a leader, when you got fired? And what was the unexpected blessing on the other side of it that you didn't anticipate?
Well, I realized a lot of things in as I reflected back on our time, with the Royals. And I touched on a little bit on the onset of this podcast. I realized that even though I didn't miss birthdays, I didn't miss celebrations, and I tried to be home as much as I could. I realized I really wasn't present when I was home. I was thinking about the job 24/7, 365. And it's you can become addicted to it. And I realized that at a lot of point in time during that leadership journey, the Royals and baseball was my God. There was times that I think that I sacrificed more for other people's children, as maybe I did for my own at times, and gave them the benefit of the doubt in ways that I didn't give my own family. And so I learned a lot about myself. And in fact, Dan, I've had, 3 opportunities to step back into that GM president role. And, I felt like, I need this time. I'm coming up on 4 years. It'll be 4 years, this September. And I'm just now starting to get through that a little bit. I feel like that I'm getting to a point where I'm just getting ready to lead again in a strong way, but I've needed that time to just kind of heal, do a better, and I know I'll do a better job going forward because of what I've experienced. I'm thankful for, what we went through, and as much as anything, to really just kind of be able to share that leadership journey with other people. And because, as we all know, we learn more from our mistakes. And when you mentor people and you disciple others, yeah, they want to hear more about those mistakes and those challenges and how you work through, some of those issues. And the successes are great, and that's what the world celebrates from the outside. But truthfully, the most impactful leaders and mentors and are the ones that are willing to share their mistakes and what they would do different. And I've always felt you might as well be transparent in life anyway, because you're going to get exposed. So I'm thankful for what I went through. It was hurtful at the time. That was my family outside my family. When we got fired with the Royals, we had 47 employees there. Working in scouting, player development, the front office, that we had signed as players with the Atlanta Braves or the Kansas City Royals. And they were individuals that I'd known in some cases since they were 15, 16 years old, and knew them before they were married, and got to know their children. And so, that's a painful process when you go through something like that.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
The other thing I would do differently as well, is if I ever step back in that role, I'm going to do a better job of having community outside of the game. Outside of baseball, because that's where all my friends and all the relationships were within baseball, and not as many deep relationships outside of baseball. Over the last 3+ years, I've been able to establish more deeper, meaningful relationships outside of the world of baseball, and that's so healthy to be able to have community outside the workplace.
Yeah, that's probably a good word for anybody in any profession, right? Especially if you're at the top of the ladder and leading at a high level. We need that support and encouragement and accountability outside of our organization, don't we? That's a great insight. Yeah, talk to me a little bit about you're very faith forward in everything you do. In the conversations that you and I have had, I listened to a couple of other podcasts. You're very faith forward. Walk us back through your journey with Jesus. When did you come to faith in Christ, and when did you start following Him in real and profound ways?
As I reflect back again and realize, I felt that, I had given my life to Christ, and in high school, and but I really didn't have a relationship with Jesus. And when I started leading departments with the Atlanta Braves back in the mid '90s, you know, I wanted to lead really well. And the Royals were the Braves were the model organization in baseball, and I was asked to be the assistant director of scouting. I was leading departments for the first time in my career, and so I studied leaders. I studied leaders like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I studied leaders like Abraham Lincoln. I studied leaders like Coach John Wooden, the most successful basketball coach in history at UCLA. And I loved their leadership principles. And then as I went deeper into where their strength came from, it was all about the principles of Jesus, and it was right out of the Gospels. And so I quickly learned that the greatest leader of all time, the greatest competitor of all time, was Jesus. And so as I began to study the Gospels, and particularly the Sermon on the Mount, and pattern our leadership style, my leadership style, after Jesus, I fell in love with him. And that's when the relationship started. And it was really just out of submission and desperation to want to be a great leader. And so that's how that relationship became what it is today.
Yeah. How has even as a grown man, how has your relationship with Jesus changed since 2022?
Well, I've learned that grace is so important to not only give grace, but to accept grace, and knowing that yes, I always felt that it's not practice makes perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. I always said things like, if you don't make perfection your goal, you will be beaten by the person who does. And so very structured, very disciplined. But that can become very unhealthy as well. And I think if you don't have Jesus as a part of that commitment, and him partnering with you, through some of those activities and pursuit of certain achievements and goals. And so, I've just learned that to do more fighting on my knees, and to give things away. Somebody told me one time that 90% of the things that you worry about never come to fruition. I didn't really trust that. I worry less and give away things more. I understand the importance of, as I said before, keeping my marriage strong. And when Mary Ann is thriving and I feel like I'm serving her at a high level, I'm more at peace throughout the day. I find more stability, in our children as well, and in my own relationships. And but that's those some of the things that I've learned, and that Jesus is continuing to teach me.
Yeah. Dayton is a high-level leader at the top of an organization, and you've been a high-level leader your entire career. Has there been Christian men, who have pursued you, who have mentored you, discipled you, really encouraged you, and maybe even admonished you to walk the way of the Lord?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I've had great mentors in my life. I've had great baseball mentors. I've had great spiritual mentors. I mean, a gentleman by the name of Tim Cash, who was working with an organization called UPI, which is a ministry focused on professional baseball, came alongside of me with the Atlanta Braves early on in my career, challenged me in ways that I needed to be challenged. He helped me uncover blind spots. He spoke truth into my life, and has really been a great encourager as well. He would come even when we came to Kansas City, he'd come spend time with our family, and of course my pastor here in Kansas City, Christian Newsom at Journey Church. I would invite him to spring training every year, just to kind of shadow me and sit with me in all my meetings and listen to all my conversations. And
Wow.
and I would ask him, give me honest feedback. on things that I could do differently, and my interactions with people, and we'd stay in the same room together. We'd eat all of our meals together, and so I think it's important to have that type of trust. But you've got to understand who's earned the right to speak into your life on that type of level, and you've got to have that transparency and that trust. And so I've always felt that was really, really important, just to kind of help me uncover blind spots.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We all need truth tellers in our life, and truth tellers that there's all kinds of people that will tell us what they perceive the truth to be,
Yeah.
that really aren't for us. We can't
Yeah.
trust them, but to have people that are for us,
That's right.
telling us truth, that's invaluable.
I always felt it was important. I always knew what I didn't know, but I was always worried that there was things that I needed to know and wasn't aware of it. Right? I didn't want to have if you don't know what you need to know, then that's a huge problem. And so asking good questions. Of course, I had a mentor in John Sherholtz, who's a Hall of Fame general manager, Paul Snyder, who's a Hall of Fame scouting and player development individual, with the Atlanta Braves, that were great at asking questions. They were great listeners, and to have those models in my life helped me a great deal as well. And just understanding self. When you understand self and you're transparent with who you are, you don't fool the man in the mirror. You're more equipped to put that board of advisors around you at all levels to help you.
Yeah. You've got a love for baseball in a big way. It permeates every area of your life. When did you first fall in love with the game of baseball? And then how did that progress through playing in college, not being good enough, your words, not mine, to play in the majors, yet continuing to pursue baseball as a career? Kind of walk us through that.
Well, I can't recall a day in my life where I didn't think about baseball, dream about baseball. I was just so passionate about it, and I loved to compete. I loved teams. I enjoyed the diversity of teams, especially in baseball. As I got into professional baseball, and all the different cultures that are associated with it. And of course, when I was younger, I wanted to be, Bob Greasy was a great quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. Well, I quickly learned that I probably wasn't going to be an NFL quarterback. Dr. J, who was the great basketball player, Julius Erving with the Philadelphia 76ers.
You were dating yourself.
Yeah, I realized that probably wasn't a possibility. But I looked at guys like Pete Rose and Joe Morgan and guys like that, and they were similar stature and size. And I said, I can be a baseball player. And so, that's really where my pursuit intensified, when I came to the realization that, that was my best opportunity to perhaps be a professional athlete, someday. And so, but as I developed into leadership positions, I realized the important thing was to use it as a platform to grow leaders, to learn how to lead yourself, to grow future leaders. And what it taught me was, don't look at the men in uniform as baseball players. Look at them as sons and brothers and future husbands and fathers. And because the professional athletes are, they're genetically gifted to play the game. They have athleticism and great skill. That great skill came about because of the tremendous sacrifice and time that they were willing to make to develop that skill. So they have some obsessive, intense, driven behaviors already. And so how can we make sure the game of baseball doesn't turn them into something they don't want to be? And so let's use it as a platform to help grow them as leaders. And so there's some, basic things and basic principles that baseball teaches you. Baseball teaches you to think. It teaches you to concentrate. It teaches you to overcome failure. It teaches you to commit. It teaches you to listen. to be a great teammate, to put others first. I mean, I can go on and on with the lessons that baseball teaches you. And so, when I first became a college coach, we began to study, and put these principles into action. And I realized that as much fun as I had playing baseball, that I was getting more enjoyment out of teaching baseball and serving others and helping them, reach their ceiling. And of course, and then to be able to join the Atlanta Braves in 1994 and be able to evolve into different positions. You got more influence and more opportunity to direct others and help with behavioral issues and guide young men into becoming those husbands and fathers. And so we've always just used it as a platform to grow leaders. And I told John Sherman, who is the current owner of the Kansas City Royals, early on when we were forming our partnership, when he took over the Royals as the owner in November of 2019, I said, John, I look at this organization like it's a hospital. The people that come in, the players, the staff, the front office executives, all of our employees, they're all hurting. They're all dealing with certain issues. And by the way, all of us are going to deal with many of the same things in life, just at different times. And so it's so important that our character and our leadership programs are designed in a way to help, our employees outside the workplace. Because, the truth of the matter is, I've never worked with anybody who was able to separate their personal and their professional lives. It leaks into one another. You might be able to separate it for a while, but eventually they blend and they bleed together. And so it's so important to make sure that you have programs in place that are going to help educate your players and your personnel and all of your employees off the field and different things. And again, it comes back to that, grace, showing them grace. And the best leaders, as you know, they're very demanding. There's very few things they don't see. They've got a great critical eye, and they expect a lot, and they're demanding, but they're also full of grace. And they've made advanced decisions that, people are going to make mistakes, and I'm going to forgive them. We're going to give them multiple chances. God's the greatest evaluator of all time. No one else is even close.
That's right.
But how does God evaluate people? He looks at the heart. And so we always wanted to be the type of leader and evaluator that would look at the heart. But to really look at the heart and understand the heart, you got to spend time with people. You got to meet them where you are. There's nothing wrong with fishing. There's nothing wrong with golfing. There's nothing wrong with hunting. I just never did that. There's still time.
There's still time.
There's still time. But, I always felt as a leader, you have to invest in people. And to invest in people, and you can spend time with them hunting, and you can spend time with them, fishing and on the golf course. That's not but that's how I chose to do it. And I wanted our leaders, our high-level leaders, to figure out how much time it took them to be the best husband and father they could be, and then give the organization everything else. And in doing so, sometimes you had to sacrifice in other areas. But I wanted to make sure, again, that we used our position as a platform to help people grow, on and off the field.
Yeah, that's remarkable. I've got a question that's really fresh because it came up in a coaching session that I had with a guy just 2 days ago. And then as a leader, you expect a certain work ethic, a certain level of excellence from everybody in the organization. Everybody has a job to do. They have a lane to run in. And you expect everybody to do it with excellence. Maybe not perfection, but with excellence at least. At the same time, you want them to, they have a life, that they are a husband, they are a dad, they are a son. How do you, as a leader, how do you walk that? Practically speaking, when the pressure's on, when you're fighting for the pennant, you may be in a losing streak, somebody's in a batting slump, and they're they're not doing their job with excellence, and they're not getting time with their family. You probably feel that tension a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing, Dan, is whatever character traits that you want seen in the people that you're leading, the people you are shepherding, your organization, your culture, the highest leaders have to model that behavior. And, if you expect people to be the best husband and father they can be and give your team or your organization everything else, then you've got to model that. Like I said, you've got to make sure that your team is at home. That's your family. If you want generosity in your culture and in the people you lead, you've got to be the most generous. If you want kindness and togetherness and unity, you have to practice that as a leader. Now, you also have to you're not going to be perfect. And when you do mess up, you're going to have to be transparent about it. And, we always tried to make sure that when we messed up that we were the first to say, you know what, I can do better. I failed you in this area. I was wrong. Please forgive me. The most important thing that you can do on a daily basis is just practice daily forgiveness and be transparent. There's the thing that I've learned in baseball more than anything else. There's two things that you got to do every single day. You got to forgive every single day. Because somebody's always second guessing you. Somebody can always do it better. Sometimes they're doing it on talk radio. Sometimes it's in the print media. Sometimes it's in the broadcast media. It's your neighbors. It's your family members. And by the way, unless you understand that principle, you probably shouldn't step into a high level leadership. People are going to talk behind your back. Give it away right now. Let it go. And obviously, our faith demands and directs us to forgive on a daily basis. And I'm reminded of the disciples. They walked with Jesus for 3.5 years, and they broke bread with him. They saw all the miracles. They talked with him. They had intimate conversations. And when Jesus was led to the cross and hanging on that cross, many of them were nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
And what Jesus do? He forgave them.
Yeah.
And so you've got to live that principle out on a daily basis. And that requires discipline. It requires prayer. It requires being in Scripture. It requires having mentors around you, and having reverse mentoring younger people around you that you are discipling, and people that have been mentoring you. It takes an entire team of people to help you, but most importantly, it's the Scriptures and prayer, being whatever your worship music is, and being calm and peaceful and all those things. I mean, you've got to practice daily forgiveness, and then the other thing is you can't quit. It's easy to want to quit. And when I would trace back to why I was feeling burnout, or why I wanted to quit, remember, I can't recall a day in my life where I haven't thought or dreamt about baseball. But there was many a times I thought about quitting and moving on. And usually when I would trace it back to why I was feeling that way, I had a dispute with somebody. I wasn't settling quickly. Well, Jesus told us to settle disputes quickly. There were times when I wasn't practicing that daily forgiveness. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't surrounding myself with people who were speaking life and positivity into me. I wasn't eating correctly and putting good things into my body and good things into my mind. And so it's a constant reset. And daily forgiveness is the first ingredient, the most important ingredient necessary to reset every single day. If you're a basketball coach or a basketball player and you go down there, you set up, and you don't have a shot, what do? You kick the ball out and you reset. Well, you're always resetting. And that was one of the fundamentals of our leadership journey, was daily forgiveness. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
Yeah.
And that was the greatest example of that I go back to all the time in leadership.
Man, we can just say amen and just shut this podcast down right now. That's a great word. Hello, friends. Summer is almost here. Can you believe it? And let's be honest. Summer is such a gift. but it can also get scattered fast. That's why we're launching Summer in the Psalms, a 40-day fight that starts on June 1st. For 40 days, we'll walk through 40 Psalms together with daily devotionals, a digital e-workbook, practical habit tools, and a community to help you stay encouraged and engaged. You'll also get access to our proprietary 5 life domains assessment, which will make personalized habit recommendations to help you choose a few simple yet meaningful targets for the 40-day fight. And this summer, we're throwing in some fun coffee perks. A 12-ounce bag of freshly roasted coffee from Storymaker Roasting, plus a This One's on Us free gift coupon to Coffee House 29. And if you'd like a hard copy of the 160-page Psalms for the Fight devotional workbook, you can add that on for a little bit extra. Depending on the package that you choose, you can also grab one of these 40-day fight t-shirts. Direction, not perfection. So join us this summer for 40-day fight, and let's pursue health, wholeness, and hope together. Sign up today at 40dayfight.com or through the link in today's show notes. And remember, friends, it's never about perfection. It's about direction. When did you take over as manager, president of the Royals? What year?
We came to Kansas City in June of '06. I was with the Atlanta Braves for almost 13 years. I started there as an area scouting supervisor in '94, moved down to Atlanta in August of '96, right after the Olympics, to be the assistant director of scouting. John Schuerholz, Paul Snyder began to elevate me in different roles, and finally by 2006 I was assistant GM over all scouting, all player development. Never thought I'd leave Atlanta because I had great relationships there. Our children were thriving. We had a great church. Mary Ann and I were enjoying that stage of our life. Ashley was 10, Avery was 7, Robert was 4. I was part of the succession plan of the Atlanta Braves, and John Schuerholz made that very clear to me. And then the Royals called. It was my boyhood team, and I decided to meet with Mr. Glass, who was one of the most successful businessmen in the history, of our country. He'd been running Walmart, and I met with him really just out of respect. Royals, my boyhood team, great leader. Never was going to leave the Atlanta Braves, though. But I felt like, maybe I could just kind of help him, make a recommendation for him, because the Royals had been struggling. But as I sat down with Mr. Glass, this one-on-one communication with him, he flew into Peachtree DeKalb Airport, just north of Turner Field there in Atlanta. And as I sat next to him and talked to him, he talked repeatedly about his family, my family. He was very humble. He wanted to create a model organization in Kansas City. He said things like, I'm failing for the first time in my professional life. I don't know how to lead a baseball team. I need somebody to partner with me. Wow. We're going to be in this thing together. And I began to just wow, my heart was attracting to this guy, David Glass, and I found myself pulling for him and wanting him to be successful. But so I began this personal and professional struggle. Do I stay in Kansas City, or do we go to Atlanta? And a period of time went by, almost 2 weeks, and then finally we decided to come to Kansas City. And I can honestly tell you, after being in Kansas City, and of course, all the counsel was don't go to Kansas City. You can't win in Kansas City. Why would you leave the Atlanta Braves? The Royals are the smallest market in all of baseball. The economics of the game have changed greatly, and we decided to do it. We wanted to go create our own culture and do something special. But I can honestly tell you, after being in Kansas City for about 2-3 weeks, analyzing and evaluating all aspects of the organization, I was 100% sure, without a doubt, that we'd made the wrong decision. Those people were right. We couldn't win in Kansas City. I just didn't think we could win. And so we set out, okay, we're not going to win probably here, I probably won't laugh because if you don't win after 4 or 5 years in professional sports, they get rid of you. And I said to myself, let's just create the greatest culture in all of sports. Let's just create a place where people love to work, want to be a part of something bigger than self.
Hmm.
And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do that. The leaders are going to do three things. They're going to apply moral principles in their life on a consistent basis, or they can't work here. They're going to embrace diversity of thought, diversity of culture, diverse ideas. They're going to respect each other. They're going to pull for one another, but they're going to do that by competing for one another, putting others first. And that is the mentality that we were going to create. And in order to do so, the leaders have to model it. I had to be number one at the top of that. Some days I failed. Some days I felt like we did a good job. But we were able to do it because we put together a bunch of like-minded people that were going to commit to that philosophy. And so, but it was Mr. Glass. It was the Holy Spirit leading me to sit down with Mr. Glass one-on-one,
Mm-hmm.
beginning to understand him, and him and understanding me, and me falling in love with his vision and his heart for people.
Mm-hmm.
And just said, you know what, I'm pulling for this guy. I want to win for this. I will bleed for this guy. I will sacrifice for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the motivating principle. More so than Royals, my boyhood team, and my mother's team, my grandmother's team. That was emotional part of it. But sitting with Mr. Glass, I had the hardcore principles and the support of the owner unconditionally, I felt. And that's the beauty of the God we serve. He loves us unconditionally. He's going to keep pursuing us. He's going to keep giving us multiple chances. And that's who I fell in love with Mr. Glass.
Yeah. And is Mr. Glass still alive?
No. Mr. Glass, he passed away in January of 20.
Okay.
And but again, one of the most successful businessmen and people that I've ever been around. Sam Walton basically hired him to run his first store.
Okay.
And they began that journey together. And of course, we know the principles of Mr. Sam Walton and what his family and that legacy's been able to create, and the great work that's been able to do around the world.
I've noticed a character trait in you as we've talked is that it's really easy for you to honor people, not in a false kind of way, but people that have, whether it's your wife or Mr. Glass or others that have mentored you, you honor them, and there's just really something Christ-like about that. So thanks for modeling that.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, you won the World Series in 2015. I think the Royals went to the World Series in 2014 as well. But also, if my memory serves me right, you guys were at the bottom of the barrel for a few years before that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure as we go back to forgiveness, that had to be a hard time where everybody was second guessing you. Maybe not everybody inside the organization, but everybody outside the organization, the experts that write the articles and the fans and that type of thing. Is that one of the places and seasons where you had to practice forgiveness?
No doubt.
Yeah.
Tim Cash, spiritual mentor I mentioned earlier, he told me early on in the leadership journey, he said, people are looking at you and I every single day in one of two ways. They're looking at us with a critical eye or a critical spirit. Thank God for those people looking at us with a critical eye. They're help shaping us, mold us, they're teaching us, they're mentoring us, they're speaking truth into our lives. Be thankful for that. And always encourage people to look at you with a critical eye. But then there's a lot of people that are going to look at us with a critical spirit. We're never going to please them. Whatever we say, they're going to be devil's advocate. They're going to do the opposite. They're going to say the opposite, and just learn to give that away. And so again, I go back to Jesus' example of daily forgiveness. And but I think that's one of the key aspects of leadership but you got to be careful not as a leader, and you see things with a critical eye. Okay, you're gifted at evaluating things. And in fact, you can not only can you see it, you can smell it, you can sense it when it's not going right. And sometimes that critical eye will turn into a critical spirit. We had a rule, if you will, or a philosophy when we're sitting in the suite watching the major league game, never to criticize the play on the field, the players, the coaching staff, the managers' moves, because when you're watching a baseball game and it's your life, it's your livelihood, you can become very emotional about it. And when you're looking at things with a critical eye and you see things, if you choose to voice that critical opinion, that critical nature, that second guessing, if you will, oftentimes that'll turn into a critical spirit. And I think you just got to be very, very careful and disciplined with your body language and what you say. And so we just tried to make an advanced decision. Whatever happens in this game tonight, we're not going to criticize it openly, emotionally amongst the group. Okay, we'll talk about it when the emotions have left us, and we can look at things with a critical eye and make sure that our spirit is not involved with this. And that may be, that's just kind of how I felt we needed to do it in the professional sports world.
Yeah, that's a good principle. A critical eye is a gift potentially for anyone, but a critical spirit is dangerous, and it can lead to that. And I could see that principle applying in marriage, in any relationship where you're observing things, but if you don't sit on it and pray about it, it's going to end up backfiring on you if you speak it too quickly with the emotion. And that's definitely an emphasis of mine, even as
I've been there.
Life. Yeah,
I've been there many times. So
yeah, me
weekly,
too.
Actually.
I was going to say as recently as yesterday. Yeah, same thing. Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Hey, something that really pops into my mind. You were a coach in college. And then went to the Atlantic Braves. What kind of coach were you? Were you a hitting coach, pitching coach, assistant overall coach? Like, where did you start your career?
Well, I worked for a gentleman by the name of Billy Brown, who was 40 plus years a head coach at George Mason University. He gave me a tremendous amount of responsibility, more than I had really deserved. Hadn't even really earned it, and he just kind of gave it to me. And of course, I wanted as much responsibility as possible when you're young and you're trying to learn and grow and what have you, and took on too much, truthfully. But I primarily worked with infielders and hitters and did the recruiting, and like I said, he gave me a lot of responsibility, and he allowed me also to manage in the summer in the Shenandoah Valley Collegiate League, which was one of the more prestigious collegiate leagues at the time. And he allowed me to do that. And so I was coaching or managing in over 100 games a year, which I felt that was important, because, you want to be able to be engrossed in it, and you want your decisions to almost become second nature. You've got to think very, very quickly in those roles. And at the time, my goal was to be a head coach in college, or even, someday, coach at the professional level. And, but I think looking back on it, God kind of took me out of it a little bit, because I think he understood the intense nature in which I know he did, in which I was designed. And sometimes my intensity and my emotions would get ahead of my logic at times. And I needed a reset. And so when the Braves, actually, I'd been offered two other jobs to scout. I turned them down to stay on the path of college coaching. And then when the Atlanta Braves called, and I met with them, I was just going to do it for 4 years and get back into college coaching. But I felt like I needed somewhat of a reset and learn a different aspect of the game. But the end game was always to go back to being a head coach at a major Division I college. Okay. And but as I again reflect back, hindsight being 2020, I can see God, how he kind of just created things and opened up doors and closed doors for me, which was best for me and ultimately Marianne and our 3 children.
Mm-hmm. There's a very different gift set between a head coach of an organization and the manager president of an organization, is there not?
There is, yes.
Yeah. When did you first know, or when did somebody first see in you that you had the potential to not be a head coach, but to be a manager president oversee the entire organization?
Well, a guy named Donnie Williams and Paul Snyder. I haven't mentioned Donnie, but Donnie was one of my mentors, still is one of my mentors to this day. Breathed life onto me really early on in my career.
Mm-hmm.
They just they would praise me and then also speak truth to me.
Mm.
And I knew that these men genuinely cared about me. They were both in their upper 50s at the time, and I was in my upper 20s, and just men that really, really cared for me. And you said that you made a comment earlier how I want to honor people. One of the things that I think about all the time is, I want to do my job so well because I want to honor those men that believed in me. And I'm thankful for that. And I know God put them in my life. Um, and so, but they really kind of motivated me. And again, it goes back to if somebody believes, that's a big deal. If somebody believes in you, and so I've always taken that principle to try to believe in others. And again, God never gave up on me,
Mm-hmm.
and He's not going to give up on me. So what right do I have to ever give up on somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. The I have a passion to help people really find the vocation that fits their passion, their gifting, and whatnot. And rarely I've found is it the first job out of college or even the degree that we get in college. I feel like there's so much pressure on young people to get that right degree and get that right career path, where oftentimes it's just a first step into seeking out what the Lord has for us. And I see that with you, where even though baseball's been part of the story from the beginning, your job description and responsibility has shaped and been reshaped over the years. How would you encourage somebody that's maybe stuck in knowing exactly what the Lord has for them in the way of providing for their family and really serving in their giftedness, working in their giftedness?
well, that's a great question. And let me just say this: if you're a husband or a wife, that's your most important role. If you are a mother or a father, that is your most important role. Your team is at home. That's your family's your team. That's your main responsibility. If you chose to get married, your number one responsibility is to be a spouse. If you chose to have children, your number one responsibility is to raise those children, model the behavior you want seen, make sure that you understand father, mother, that your habits could be your children's addictions. You have to be careful with that. Be disciplined with how you talk, how you act, what you drink, what you don't drink, what you read, what you don't read, what you watch, what you don't watch. You've got to
Mm.
be intentional and disciplined about that. There's no room for error. It's all important because sometimes even though God gives a second chance, you can't make that mistake. It's all really, really important that you get that right the first time. In my opinion, you're going to discipline your children inappropriately at times. When I did, or I said things, I took them upstairs. I got on my knees with them. I prayed to God. I asked Jesus to forgive me for what I said, for how I acted, for maybe how I spoke to their mother in front of them. I took that right to Jesus in front of them. So I think that's the most important thing that you can do. And if you have your family and your team at home right, now you're going to be freed up to pursue whatever you want to pursue, wherever your passions lie. And you know what? I think Warren Buffett said this. I heard him say this many years ago. Mr. Glass was friends with him, and Warren Buffett was a big baseball fan, is a big baseball fan. He actually used to have ownership of the Omaha Storm Chasers, which was our AAA team with the Royals. And I heard Warren Buffett say one time, he said, it was important for me to do something I love with people I love. Well, I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was great. It makes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sense. And so you want to do something you love with people you love, but you also got to be good at it.
Yes.
You got to have some skill, with it as well, right? You've got to, and so, I think that's important that you line all that up, seek counsel, put a board around you, mentors. If you want to be a great coach, have a great coach or somebody mentor. If you want to be a businessman or a businesswoman, find someone in business to mentor you and help you. If you want to be a pastor or in the ministry, find somebody to help guide you in your path, and or financial planner. If you find a financial planner who can mold you and shape you, but I think prayer is an important part of that. Be faithful. Just be faithful. And I think I've always found through the years, if you're just faithful, God's going to open up the doors. But you've got to be willing to step into those doors. One of the things I didn't say about coming here to Kansas City, I did talk about how I love the Atlanta Braves. I never thought I'd leave the Atlanta Braves. Well, I wasn't going to come to Kansas City even after believing in Mr. Glass and all these, and all the prayer and what have you, because truthfully, there was probably a little fear to go somewhere else and to try to build something when we'd already had something established here, right? And so Tim Cash, my spiritual mentor, encouraged me that I could go to Kansas City, do it the way I wanted to do it. I didn't have to follow anybody else's pattern, right? John Schuerholz is a Hall of Fame general manager, probably the best general manager in the history of the game. And when I looked at how he did it, I said to myself, I could never do that. I'm not as talented as John. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to stay under his wing and what have you. But, Tim encouraged me, I could, go do it my own way, put your own, stamp on it. But you've got to have the right people around you that are going to help you when you decide you're going to step in and take on a challenge like that. Because no matter who your mentors are or how much success you've had, there's no really any way to understand what that job is fully about until you do it. And it took me 3 to 4 years of doing the job every single day to begin to feel comfortable with it. I was talking to Chris Young, who I work with and for right now, who's the president and general manager of the Texas Rangers. I shared that with him yesterday. And he said, you're 100% right. He said, It takes time to really learn all aspects of the job, and it's always changing.
And the first couple of years of doing something for the first time, imposter syndrome is a real thing, right? I mean, it's like, you are just working as hard as you can to learn it on the job. And
that's right.
Yeah. Now, your habits will become your kids' addictions. Has that ever come out of your mouth before? Did you just make that up?
No, I've shared that with folks before, and
it is so good.
I think our Christian Newsom, who's our pastor, I heard him say that one time in a small group setting, and I'm like, you know what? He's 100% right on it, because I have seen that.
Yeah.
And so most of the things that I talk about, I like I said, Dan, I had great mentors and people that teach me, and I've tried to study leadership my whole life, and I always felt that if you're going to step into a leadership role, you've got to have answers. Mm-hmm. And the only way I'm going to get answers is to ask questions and to be transparent about my life, learn from my mistakes, and most importantly, study Jesus and the Gospels and have that relationship with Jesus, because I've learned so much that he's saved me from me so many times. The times when I would make decisions without his counsel and his guidance and his word, and reflect back on why it worked or didn't work. When it did work and I didn't seek his counsel, he just saved me from me. And in times it didn't work, he was like, okay, Dayton, you want to do it yourself? You're going to do it the school of hard knocks? Well, we're gonna teach you a lesson here.
Yeah,
and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, me too. And
thankful for consequences. I'm thankful.
Yes, sir. Yes, because there's God's grace in the middle of that.
That's right.
Hey, we're going to finish up on the topic of generosity. You started off your career, working for free, and then not making very much money, and then you alluded to during the World Series era, you were making more money than you ever dreamed of. And somewhere along the road, you helped start City Unite. Is that what it's called? City Unite?
Unite Kansas City. Yep. Unite KC. Yep.
Unite KC, and then a foundation that you and Marianne started. Walk us through that. Why start a foundation and KC Unite? Why not just get more houses and bigger houses? And which there's nothing wrong with that, but why not just do
Well,
that?
everything that we have belongs to God, and it's our responsibility just to steward it and steward it well, and to bring honor to Him. I believe that you do store up your treasures in heaven. Scripture tells us that. I believe that with all my heart. And I think that one of the things that's starting the foundation, our C in the Major Leagues Foundation, back in 2014, and it really helped us intensify that servant type attitude, and that we got on the generosity trail there in a more intense vision for that, and we created the foundation to help families in crisis, education, faith-based organizations, events, and then in education. And then 8 years ago, we started a mentoring program for young boys and young girls from different parts of Kansas City. 50% don't have a father present in their home. And so we started this mentoring program where they meet on a weekly basis. We do all kinds of different activities with them, and leadership curriculum and teaching and speakers. But the one thing, it's helped the mentors as much as the mentees. The mentors, they're thriving in their stage of life because they're getting an opportunity to come alongside of a young person. And there's a lot of reverse mentoring that's taken place in that as well. And so as you know, when you start serving others, that's when you really begin to thrive. When you become a character in somebody else's story, life's much, much more fulfilling. I mean, you've learned that. I tell young players who get into the coaching profession, again, as much fun as you had playing, once you start coaching and pouring into the next player and the next generation, you're going to get more out of that than you ever did playing, more fulfillment. And it's so true. And they're quick to respond and say, hey, you know what? Thanks for telling me that. You're 100% right. And so that's really kind of been the spirit of our foundation work. And it's been very meaningful to Marianne and myself. But Unite KC, it was never meant to be a 501c3, a nonprofit. It was really just kind of a movement, a coalition. And, when we were going through COVID and all the George Floyd stuff, and it was just very, very frustrating that, we're going through this once again in our society, where we think that men and women and people can solve problems, or whether it be racism or police brutality or whatever you felt, okay? But men and women can't solve these issues. Only Jesus can. And so the purpose, the vision behind that was, can we just get the men and women of faith to come together and say, hey, look, you know what? We can't solve these issues. These issues are unsolvable without Jesus. And it's one kingdom. It's Jesus's kingdom. It's not. It's yes, we have different cultures, and it's okay to celebrate your culture as long as it doesn't interfere with Jesus's culture. And so that was kind of the spirit behind it, and it was really impactful because, for example, we came alongside of the police commissioner of Kansas City, Rick Smith, and he was under a lot of pressure at the time, and we were able to say, hey, look, we're not going to talk about what we're for, or excuse me, we're not going to talk about what we're against. We're going to talk about what we're for, and we're for leaders, and we're for supporting leaders, and we're for truth, and we're for Jesus, and we're going to pray with Rick Smith. We're going to engage the African American community in Kansas City and give them a chance and a place to come outside of Black Lives Matter, because most of them didn't believe, a lot of them didn't believe in that particular organization, but they felt they needed to join something and be a part of something. So let's talk about what we're for, not what we're against. We're for families. And yes, families look different today than ever before. We're not going to discriminate based on your family. I mean, there's dysfunction in my family, there's dysfunction in your family. And so we're going to embrace that, and we're going to talk about what we're for, and we're going to talk about being united during this time, this very pivotal, combustible time in our country. And so it's grown to about 8,000 people that I think are actively following, this movement, this coalition. And again, it's just the spirit of people coming together, saying that Jesus is the only way for us to come together and to solve the issues of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, even though we're beyond COVID and a lot of the riots and whatnot, we still live in a very divided culture. Still, what are some of the wins that you've seen Casey Unite have over the last couple of years?
One of the cool things that um, a gal by the name of Annika Barker and a gentleman by the name of Bill High co-wrote a book called The Spiritual Roots of Kansas City. And Annika actually does tours. And so one of the things that RC and the Major Leagues Foundation has sponsored through Unite KC is to set up these tours in Kansas City for people can join to go on a bus tour and get Annika's book, and she'll narrate, the spiritual roots of Kansas City to understand, what that was about and who were the spiritual leaders and what the struggles were about. And so and just getting people together to celebrate that and to learn as we move forward and pour into the next generation. And the other thing is, again, as we started, just talking about the importance of keeping your family strong, and the role of a husband, the role of a mother, the role of a son or a daughter, and the great responsibility that siblings have for one another, and to honor their mother and their father. And again, that unit is so important for the future and the health of all aspects of our city, our state, and our country. And so
Yes. Yes.
that's what we're focused on.
That's awesome. Well, keep up the good work there. Super, super excited about that. Now I'm going to get to the final question, the most important question. That's two-sided. Is there any hope? I know there's hope in Jesus, but outside of that, is there any hope for the Colorado Rockies?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think they're going to be. I think they're going to do good. I mean, Josh Burns, who's the general manager there, he's a terrific baseball man. And, he's Paul DePotesta, who's the president, he's a great thinker and somebody that, I think will create great structure and foundation. And, Dick Momford is he's a committed baseball man. And, it's been disappointing. Billy Smith, who was the general manager there, is a good friend, and he did a lot of great work. They've had a lot of, it's and laying some foundation. A lot of the players that are there starting to play better. Billy, had drafted and signed him. And so, sometimes, when you get in a rut, it's just hard to get out of it. And so change is necessary. It's required. And I believe that, the Rockies will continue to get better.
Well, it's a 30-year rut. With there was a couple times where they got their head out. Is there room in the front office for Dayton Moore, the Colorado Rockies?
Well, I'm really excited what I'm doing now, but I love helping, and I love to see what I do know is this. I do know the importance that a Major League Baseball team plays in a community and in a city.
Yeah.
And I really wish everybody associated with baseball could win a World Series because they realize two things. They'd realize how much unity and together and sacrifice that it took to win a World Series. And then once you have that togetherness and that unity and that commitment, that's all you crave. Okay? That's all you crave, and you fight like heck every single day to have that unity, and you're willing to give up self because you realize that that's ultimately how the unity and togetherness is going to be created. And then the second thing, you would realize that it's not the most important thing. Winning a World Series, raising that trophy, being a part of a parade with 800,000 people plus coming together. You would realize that you would go back to that first one. It's about the unity, together, the process, the grace that God showed you along the way. You would learn so much more about yourself. And so hopefully the Rockies will get that opportunity someday. And because I hope that fan base and all involved get a chance to experience that.
Yeah, and I'm convicted. I just crossed over from
critical eye to critical spirit. And so thanks for giving language to that.
That's the nature of sports. That's our outlet,
It really is. Yeah.
You know.
Well, Dayton, this has been a delight. Thank you so much for just sharing your wisdom and your journey. And I know it's going to benefit my listeners. It's already benefited me. You're a great leader. I can't wait to see what the Lord has for you. He's not done with you. He's going to continue to use you for His glory and in your gifts for the good of other people. So keep pressing in.
Well, thanks, Dan. Very kind of you, and appreciate this relationship.
Yeah, thanks so much. And if people wanted to follow your journey, are you out there anywhere? LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook?
Well, no, not really. I mean, our foundation, our C in the Major Leagues Foundation, and the letter C. I think you can go to C in the majorleagues.org.
Okay.
That's. But no, I'm not active on social media. So,
okay,
but our foundation is so.
Fantastic. Well, great. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. And for the Delay the Decay audience, thanks for being with me today. And I hope you enjoyed and were encouraged by Dayton Moore. Remember, this journey of life is about direction, not perfection. When we get stuck in perfection, we don't take that next right step. So strive for excellence, but head in a direction, but not focus on perfection. Have a great week, and we will see you on the other side.